This is Dennis Michelsen. It's time to go down on the farm and tell you about something that, well, it's going to remove some stress from your crops. Joining me on the hotline to tell you all about it, he's Scott Lay, talking today about TERRAMAR. And I did lead in by saying it's all about reducing stress. TERRAMAR helps the plant stand up to stress.
That it does, and I think as we're fond of saying, you cannot choose the weather in which your crops grow. But one can choose, in this day and age, practices to help minimize the impact of weather and deliver a more consistent result from year to year. So that's a lot of the story behind what TERRAMAR will deliver for crops.
One thing that we can count on is that we're going to have some very stressful days with our crops. It doesn't matter whether you're talking corn, soybean. We are in a time where we're going to see more chaotic weather events, and weather events put a lot of stress on the plants.
Dennis, that is indeed the case. From May 15th to the end of May, over the northern half of the United States, we're coming off an extended period of cooler than average temperatures. And as farmers look at their fields, regardless of zip code, that translates to slower developing crops, more stagnant growth, and stresses that will ultimately or could impede the yield potential that those corn and soybean fields have.
Tell us a little bit about how TERRAMAR works, what it does for the plants, and how that helps out.
Yeah, TERRAMAR, again, this will be the third year we've had it in row crops, getting a lot of positive yield responses and consistency from it. But in essence, it's applied in post-emerge applications, foliar applications, early post with herbicides. And then as we progress later into the growing season through the reproductive stages, oftentimes with fungicides. But really, it boiled down to two things, what it delivers. One, and you've referenced it already, it helps minimize the impact of weather stress. So that could take on cold stresses, as we're experiencing now, as we move into June and July, heat stresses. It has biochemical properties that help that plant increase photosynthesis, increase water transpiration, which leaves that plant more resilient to stresses. The second part to TERRAMAR, and this is important, is the carbon-based component that really provides that fuel to the plant, if you will, to allow it to uptake more nutrients, which also translates to increased sucrose levels in the plant at reproductive stages. That sucrose is the fuel tank, if you will, the reservoir to supply starches and sugars to that forming grain, and that's what ultimately leads to a yield advantage.
With the cold temperatures we had in May since planting, are we possibly going to be looking at maybe root growth that wasn't as vigorous as usual?
I think that's oftentimes the case. And again, we, as referenced earlier, we can't control the weather, never have and never will be able to. But if we have the ability to really get that plant back on track and get it physiologically performing more normally to move through the growth processes and preserve yield potential, if we can do that, we have a better chance of delivering a positive yield result when that combine rolls through the field this fall.
Well, Scott, how do you apply the TERRAMAR? When is it applied? How is it applied? All that kind of good stuff.
Again, anytime there is green foliage or the crop has emerged, so as we talk about this time of year, it's really in concert with post-emerge herbicide applications. With TERRAMAR, we're not asking folks to create another application. It simply goes in with something that's already been taking place. And then again, as the season progresses, oftentimes when we get to the reproductive stages in corn or soybeans, fungicides are oftentimes employed to reduce the potential for disease. TERRAMAR pairs nicely at that point in time because, as you referenced earlier, we get into the months of July and into August, minimizing the impact of heat stress is really the name of the game, and TERRAMAR does a nice job in doing so.
I saw a chart that you guys sent out there from Nutriel Ag Solutions talking about 197 different test plots that have been done for various crops here since 2019. And Scott, I was really amazed. These are repeatable results that you get with TERRAMAR.
They are, Dennis. And again, we recognize if you're going to employ a new technology, that new technology has to be able to provide a consistent return on investment, particularly in the face of economic or commodity prices where we are today. Over that time horizon, the last 5 seasons and nearly 200 yield observations, 85% of the time, that's 85% of the time, those yield trials yielded a positive net return on investment, meaning the yield return was greater than the cost of the product. And on an average basis, it's about a 4.7 bushel advantage in soybeans. In corn, we're looking at something north of that in the nearly 9 bushel per acre advantage. Again, 85% of the time, a positive win rate, positive ROI, that's something you can take to the bank.
And even when it's just breaking even, this is an insurance policy to make sure that you're not losing more yield.
It is. And again, the day you plant the crop is the greatest potential for yield that exists. And the name of the game from there on after is simply preserving the yield potential that is there. If you can ensure more nutrients flowing into that plant, if you can take the bite out of heat or that presents itself through June and July, you've got a better chance of maintaining yield potential, which again translates to, we've seen on hundreds of instances, a very consistent return on investment that gives folks a level of confidence in applying TERRAMAR.